It started as a harmless joke, or at least that's what I thought at the time. My husband, Eric, and I had always been incredibly close. We met in college, fell madly in love, and got married 3 years later for 10 years. We were inseparable, the kind of couple people admired. We still went on dates, left love notes for each other, and exchanged thoughtful gifts. Just because we shared a bond that felt unshakable, a connection so strong I never imagined anything could threaten it. That's why I never thought a single careless comment could unravel everything we had built together. It was a warm Friday evening, and we were sitting in the backyard enjoying a quiet night with a couple of glasses of wine. The conversation was light-hearted and easy, filled with the usual topics: work, mutual friends, weekend plans. As the wine flowed, the mood shifted. It became more intimate, playful, even a little flirtatious. Eric leaned in close, kissed me on the cheek, and whispered something suggestive in my ear. It was typical of him, part of the teasing, affectionate dynamic we had always shared. When he made a cheeky remark about how amazing he was in bed, I laughed without thinking. I shot back, "Yeah, but I always thought you were a little small." The words escaped my lips before I even realized what I had said the moment they hung in the air. I wished I could take them back. Eric's face froze at first. I thought he was joking, that he'd laugh along or tease me back. But instead, his expression darkened. The warmth in his eyes disappeared, replaced by something I couldn't quite place. He stood up abruptly, muttering, "I need to get some air," and walked away. I tried to brush it off with a nervous laugh, thinking he just needed a moment. But when he didn't come back and chose to sleep on the couch that night for the first time in our marriage, I realized I had made a terrible mistake. The next morning, I tried to apologize. I explained that it was just a stupid joke, something I'd said without thinking, but Eric wouldn't hear it. He barely looked at me as he grabbed his car keys and said, "I need some space." I told myself it would blow over. We'd weathered so many ups and downs together. Surely this was just a bump in the road. But the days dragged on, and instead of returning to normal, things got worse. Eric began coming home late, and when he did, he barely spoke to me, often avoiding eye contact altogether. It was like I was living with a stranger. The man who used to shower me with affection now seemed distant, cold, and unreachable. I was desperate to fix things to show him how much he meant to me. I cooked his favorite meals, planned surprise date nights, and even wrote him a heartfelt letter. None of it made a difference. It was as if my words had opened a door to something far deeper than I had understood. I began to suspect I had hit on an insecurity Eric had been silently carrying for years. One evening, after another painfully quiet dinner, I couldn't take it anymore. I put my fork down and said, "Eric, please talk to me. I don't understand what's going on," I said, my voice cracking. "It was a stupid joke, and I've apologized 100 times. Why are you still so angry?" He sat in silence for a moment, his face unreadable. Then finally he spoke. "You don't get it, do you?" His voice was low, and there was an edge to it. "It wasn't just a comment, Laura. It's what the comment meant. You said something I've always feared, something I've been insecure about since I was a teenager. You took that fear and threw it in my face." His words hit me like a tidal wave. I had no idea Eric had been carrying that burden for so long. All these years, I thought we had a strong, open relationship. I never suspected he might be hiding such deep doubts about himself. "But Eric," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, "you've never mentioned this before. Why didn't you tell me?" He sighed, and the exhaustion in his voice broke my heart. "Because I didn't want you to see me as less of a man. I thought if I didn't talk about it, it wouldn't matter. But now I can't stop thinking about it. Every time I look at you, I wonder if you've always felt that way, if every time we've been together, you've been secretly disappointed." Hearing those words was like a punch to the gut. I tried to reassure him, to tell him how much I loved and desired him, that what I had said wasn't true, but it didn't seem to matter. He didn't believe me. I could see the doubt in his eyes, and it was tearing us apart from that moment on. It felt like I was walking on eggshells. Eric's insecurity seeped into every corner of our lives. We started arguing about things that had never been an issue before. Small disagreements over chores or weekend plans spiraled into full-blown fights. The tension between us was unbearable, and our once happy marriage felt like it was crumbling before my eyes. One day, when I came home from work, I saw Eric packing a suitcase. My heart sank the sight of him kneeling by the bed, folding clothes with an expression I couldn't quite place. Made my stomach twist for a moment. I felt like I was watching someone else's life unfold, not mine. "What are you doing?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper, trembling with the fear of an answer I wasn't ready to hear. He didn't even look up. "I'm leaving Laura," he said, his voice calm, almost too calm. The words hit me like a slap. "I need time to think. I can't do this anymore." It felt as if the air had been sucked out of the room. My legs felt weak and my chest was heavy. "You're leaving because of a stupid joke?" I asked, desperation creeping into my voice. Eric stopped for a moment, standing up and facing me. His face was a mask of sadness and something deeper, something resolute. "It's not just a joke," he said, his hands still gripping the suitcase. "It's everything." The joke was just a spark that lit the fire. "I've been unhappy for a long time. Laura and I didn't even realize it until now." His words were a dagger to my heart. Unhappy. How could he have been unhappy? I thought we were happy. At least I thought we were in sync, connected. I had built this narrative in my mind that our marriage was solid, that we understood each other. And now it felt like someone had ripped the foundation of my world apart. I stood frozen, unable to move or speak, as Eric zipped up the suitcase. He didn't say anything else. He didn't offer a goodbye or a promise to come back. He just walked out the door. The sound of it closing behind him was deafening, and I stayed rooted to the spot, my mind spinning with questions I couldn't answer. How had it come to this? How could something so seemingly small lead to such a monumental change? The days that followed were some of the hardest of my life. I felt like I was walking through a fog, unable to think clearly or focus on anything. The world outside seemed to move on as if nothing had happened, but inside I was crumbling. I replayed that night over and over in my head, dissecting every word I had said, every moment that led up to it. I wanted so badly to go back in time, to take back my words, to undo the damage. I tried to reach out to him, but he wouldn't budge. I called, I texted, I even showed up at his apartment once, but Eric was firm. He needed space, he needed time, and as much as it tore me apart, I knew I had to give him that. Weeks passed, and the reality began to sink in. My marriage might really be over. The thought was unbearable, but I couldn't ignore it any longer. I started seeing a therapist to help me process the guilt and grief that weighed me down like an anchor in those sessions. I began to unravel the layers of our relationship, and I came to understand that the joke, as hurtful as it had been, was not the sole reason for Eric's decision to leave. There had been cracks in our foundation long before that night. My therapist helped me see that Eric's insecurities about his size, insecurities he had never fully addressed, were a significant part of the problem. My words, however unintentional, had struck a nerve and brought those insecurities to the surface. But it wasn't just about that moment. It was about all the moments before it, all the unresolved issues we had quietly swept under the rug one evening. Out of the blue, Eric called the sound of his name, lighting up my phone screen, made my heart race for a fleeting moment. I allowed myself to hope that maybe he was ready to come home, that maybe we could fix this. I answered quickly, my voice barely masking the mixture of hope and fear swirling inside me. I've been thinking a lot, Laura, he said, his tone somber. I don't think I can come back. His words were like a punch to the gut. I felt the tears welling up immediately. Why not? I asked, my voice breaking. We can work through this, Eric. We can fix it. His hesitation hung in the air, hair heavy and painful. I don't think I can ever forget what you said, he admitted finally. It's not just about the size thing, it's about trust. I thought you saw me as a strong, confident man. Now I feel like you see me as less, and I can't live with that. I tried to explain to convince him that I didn't see him that way. I told him I loved him, that I had always loved him, but nothing I said could change his mind. His decision was final. A month later, the divorce papers arrived. Signing them was one of the most painful things I've ever done. I couldn't believe that something so small, a thoughtless comment, had led to the end of my marriage. But as time passed, I realized it wasn't just about the joke. The joke was simply the breaking point, the final straw that revealed all the fractures beneath the surface. Looking back,